Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Walks with Schla. And while I did not listen to all of the transcripts, I did paste 5 transcripts. Not one, not two. Not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 transcripts into GPT, and we got some responses out of it. And again, I have to say it, and this is something, you may think I'm beating a dead horse here, but GPT 5.1 has really, really stepped up the game in an amazing way. It feels like a true successor to GPT 4. GPT 5 was a disaster. It basically felt like a prototype, like dead serious. It felt like a rusty prototype. I mean, you could kind of tell it was trying to be, more objective with things, but it just came off as cold and frail, not very complete. It would really get a lot of things incomplete. It didn't feel human. It felt like it lacked and lost a lot of the humanity, that the GPT-4 had. Whereas, if anything, GPT-4's flaw was it was overzealous, to the point where, yes, it might have been addicting to interact with, but in terms of actual result, yeah, I don't think so. That is not wasn't its strong suit in terms of like telling you when you're wrong and things like that, and tweaking and correcting. And 5 really didn't do it either, because I felt like when 5 said stuff to me, it just came off as like cold. It kind of felt like, I could keep arguing with it, and it would just be like, I don't know, it felt like it was kind of wrong, and I could just kind of argue with it, and then it would try to tell me I'm wrong, but not really convince me. A lot of times the same thing that would happen when, adults would try to argue with me about things. I mean, it just wouldn't really be very good at it. Now, GPT 5.1, very thorough, very elaborate, very maximalist. And it's really, I can feel like such a change and an improvement in it. First of all, I feel like the responses are right off the bat twice as long, which I think that already can say something right there. Like, my prompts, it's very likely they're way too long for GPT, like at its current, I don't know, just capabilities or how it's programmed to work. Really, it's probably just too long. Like it can't really get to everything, so it probably over skimpifies it. But what before it was probably like way over skimpifying it. 5.1, I think, is doing a better job. But, I wouldn't say it's doing a good job. Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But wow, I think it's incredibly important that they released that, just with the timing of what I'm doing and everything. Like, a lot of, I think really what's led up to now has almost been a waste of time in a way. Like, a lot of the transcripts that I've made, it was like this whole idea of being like a YouTuber or whatever. I don't really know. But either way, it's kind of been a waste of time. Like, it's almost like the walks with Schla and potentially the car rides with Schla, and having all those transcripts down is a far more important thing to do. And I have to kind of think about that, because this iPhone mini is only having the transcripts. Well, actually, never mind. I think you can import. Yeah, never mind. That doesn't matter. Because as long as I have the audio, I'll be able to import it into a text a speech to text thing, and whatever, that doesn't matter. So the history of the recordings, I think symbolically too, it really was a warm up. AI, GPT 4 in its infancy, but it was like the first version that like made any type of sense. And then now GPT 5.1, I think, is really a vision for the future, kind of the future idea, and kind of what I think the whole point of this is morphing into is that dialogue between man and AI, because I can already tell there's like a certain growth that wouldn't occur whenever I've talked to anybody. People may shoot down my ideas, but they're not able to cut the right arguments. Like their statue, it's rough, it's not chiseled. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't really mean much to me, because on my side of things, I'm often able to articulate it better or articulate it more thoroughly. And another person's response, it feels like understimulating. It feels like I said, they're cutting the stone on their statue, but, it's not very deep. Like they're not using the chisel. They're just chopping away at it. And so they're basically just taking a hatchet to the stone. And then they might be onto something, like in their critique of a point or a philosophy that I brought up. But obviously, like, it's difficult to listen. I mean, I would tangibly, on the surface level, accept that there's a flaw to my point. But since the person is not able to make a tangible or a relevant competitive argument, it's like, I mean, I'm not learning much, like I can accept that there's something off with what I'm saying, but I'm not learning. And what I'm noticing with GPT 5.1 is there's finally some kind of progress. There's finally some kind of like, I'm having these dialogues, I'm having these talking points that are definitely pushing the envelope, and I'm really learning a lot. Like I'm like sitting back, and it's really an engaging experience. And I actually think I'm doing myself a disservice by being lazy and not getting those transcripts into GPT and having GPT spit it back out. Now here's the problem. Here's the problem that I have. The problem is it's very archaic the way it is now. I mean, it's a lot better than it probably was like years ago, because at least now I'm recording and getting a transcription done all in one app, and then all I have to do is export it out. And so that is like a pretty seamless process. I think the problem is, though, is again, I have to like connect this phone to my hotspot, and then that's making me upset because it's like putting battery cycles through my phone, and it's not very seamless. I could use my actual phone to record, but again, it just seems stupid because it's much larger and bulkier. I really like using this iPhone 13 mini because of just how, compact it is. It's basically like the perfect device to do this with. But then, it doesn't have a data line on it, as it's not my current phone that I'm using. So there is that issue. It's not like as streamlined as just like being able to paste it right into GPT. I have to do a bunch of stuff that, again, on paper isn't much effort, but I can imagine a future where this could just all be done within the AI. Like within GPT, they could really just have like a recorder, like an audio recorder. They have that like transcription thing, but it's just a transcription to text, and then you lose the audio. Like what we need is GPT to add built into it just a recorder, just for recording things, and then that would really solve the problem. then it would be super streamlined, super easy, all that stuff, just automatic. And so that's like the problem is it's very frustrating for me to interface with that because I don't know, it's just like it's like a lot of extra work where I know in the future it's going to be possible for it to just be automatic. It would just be automatic. I also have some qualms with, GPT's audio playback. It's pretty terrible. I definitely think they need to work on that pretty quickly, especially because there's not really any excuse for it. It doesn't have, I was going to say a scrobbling bar, but I think, what is it called? Scrubbing? What is that? I forget what it's called. I know buffering is when it's loading, but maybe it is scrubbing through. Like, I haven't, there's got to be a term for that. If I post this in GPT, please educate me as to how to describe the progress bar in a video and how you can move it left and right to get to different lengths in the video. Yeah, they need that ASAP. I don't know why that isn't already in there. It's very clunky too. I noticed in this update, it could just be because of the increased length of the responses, but it's very finicky. It's crashy. It starts buffering randomly, and yeah, it's not a good situation. I don't know what they did to it, but yeah, it's just not good. Just not good at all. So definitely something they are going to need to work on for certain. Like, I have no idea what they're doing. It's been so long, and I don't think it should really cost that much. Just something that, something little, something easy they should just get out of the way. I know they have like bigger priorities, but should definitely be way, way, way more of a better like audio playback. So I didn't even know I was going to talk about this. That's like 12 minutes into the video, but that's kind of crazy. I didn't even think I was going to talk about it. But yeah, it is. It's very stimulating. I feel like a lot of times, I come out here and I like didn't really reflect on my work, and I almost like forgot. I know, it's like you forgot. Yeah, and that's the thing you're like always like railing against all the time. Like, dude, what kind of hypocrite? It's a shame. I know I'm human. It's a shame. But like I forget some of these previous things I said, and then GPT is able to kind of take it and articulate it better. It's able to cut through a lot of the noise, and that's kind of my new takeaway. I forgot to mention earlier, but what I was trying to get at is I don't really see what the point of listening to this show is going to be in the future. I mean, as it stands right now, it's great. It's cool that it's like art or whatever, but we're going to get to a point pretty soon where text-to-speech is just going to be better, especially because so much about recording is like environmentally based, and obviously I don't have the luxury of not having to work and having 24/7 access to a studio soundproofed room. So inevitably AI generated content will not only be able to surpass me in terms of lack of filler and overall informational density, but it will also be able to surpass me in cadence and just overall, not only its speaking ability, but its sound quality, as it could emulate a perfect sound, like as if it was from a sound-tuned room. So there's a lot of concern there, and it kind of makes this effort, I think it's shifting my effort. At first I thought this is like a career thing. I thought it was going to be a way for me to connect with people, to make friends, and I'm almost seeing that as like an intervention to, that was just to lure me in. Now I kind of see it as a gateway and a connection to the future, which is an ability to connect with AI and with myself. Like, it's not really other people who are going to be benefiting from this. And I actually think the purpose and the pacing of the show have changed. You know, they've changed like pretty dramatically since the beginning, and since like kind of what that initial point is. Kind of why I think I've been given the cold shoulder by so many people, because it's been this destined thing for me to just, you know, I guess God's just saying, just be alone. You know, be alone and work on, like, there's a gift, but your gift is only going to be in solitude. It's not going to be appreciated by other people. Other people aren't going to have time for it, you know? So that's kind of what I wanted to mention, because I've talked before about I'll just try to repeat it real quick. My like summary of my intentions with the show, it was because for a period of my life, I thought private moments and real interactions with living people was paramount, and that was really the most important thing for a good life and a good purpose and a good future and all that stuff. And so I really pushed hard into private life and friends and trying to create meaningful, memorable experiences with them, you know? And so there's been such a turmoil with that, people not reciprocating right, people being crazy. Long story short, finally had enough of it and realized I'm putting all this like emphasis on other people. I'm usually the person with the sauce anyway. Like, why am I putting all this like effort into other people when I'm the person with all the sauce like, that just doesn't add up. That just doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm the person with the dialogue. I like half the time I'm talking to people and it's like I'm the one talking. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't really have anything to say to what I have to say, and then the interactions are kind of dry or whatever. So that was just weird, because this mail truck had a turn signal on, but I don't think the front turn signal was working. Like, only the side turn signal was working, so I like barely could tell. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, his backlight turn signal worked and his side light turn signal worked, but the front light turn signal was not flashing, so it was difficult to notice at first. Just that little side blinker. It's not really too good, although, yeah, I don't know. That's not really a good situation. But anyways, yeah, and then it got to that point. But then now I see it as like, I don't even, because it was basically I'd been resisting trying to create content because of the inequality that it creates. It creates idolizing culture. I've talked about this before, where now, you know, a smaller percentage of people basically feed off of a large audience, and I don't really think it's fair. And like, you know, the large audience are these working class people that have to, like, they're miserable, they're working paycheck to paycheck, and then they basically like sell their lives and their time to these creators, and it's like not fair, not really fair at all. And these creators are oftentimes people that already have an upper hand anyway, because they're already usually they're better looking, usually they're more charismatic. So these are people who already have an upper hand anyway. Or on the other side of it, they're people who probably aren't good people. You know, they're like attention craving, they're willing to sell out. So it's not a good system, and so I resisted it, but I realized that I gave up, and I said, there's no more resistance. This is how things are going to work. If I want to make friends, I'm going to have to become an influencer, because there's going to be no other way to make friends in the future. Nobody's going to have time to care. I mean, if things are already the way they are now, nobody's going to have time. Nobody's going to care to call someone on the phone or things like that, because it takes a lot of effort to coordinate that. And we keep living in more and more of a chaotic society where people are absolutely terrible at time management, keeping a consistent sleep schedule, just a consistent schedule in general. Hordes of the working class are strapped by variable jobs where it's like a variable schedule. You know, they don't just have a consistent schedule. In terms of people's health, time management, ability to schedule and foresee and plan are at its worst. I mean, people are terrible with these things. So in order for me to get what I want, I'm going to have to just utilize this form factor, because there's no other possibility of anything else. There's just absolutely no way anything else is going to work remotely as well, sadly. You know, people forget, but if something's recorded, it's permanent. It's impossible for it to be forgotten for obvious reasons. And there's more time for it to be replayed or reflected or, looked at. And so that's kind of been like a main purpose. I want to try to squeeze in this last point that was like the whole thing I was going to say from the start, but then I didn't end up saying it. But the point is, there's going to be no reason for me to even make content, because in the future you could easily have an AI create personalized podcasts for you, basically, because that's kind of what's happening now, where it's like when I listen to something, it's like difficult to listen to at this point, because when I listen to GPT, it's information that's so catered specifically to me. How is a podcast able to compete with that? It can't. There's no entertainment that can compete with something that's personalized. So I think in the same way, AI is just going to overtake entertainment, and that's really an inevitable thing, and it's a bit unsettling, but we're going to have to venture into that and my thoughts on that in a different episode. I really wanted to get to this main point that I wanted to talk about, where GPT pushed back on me about how certain people wouldn't be able to reproduce, and I think it kind of misunderstood what I meant, but maybe not completely. What I mean by that is that people wouldn't, as in they wouldn't. Like if you took a person who was born in the past and you put them in this environment, they wouldn't make it. They wouldn't make it to the point of becoming a parent. And I agree with GPT in the sense of, yes, it's venturing on soft eugenics, but it's mostly a truthful statement. A lot of these older people, they have money, they're doing okay, but it's not fair, because now they're hoarding money and they probably don't deserve it, because if they were born now, we know pretty much for certain they would be a heck of a more of a mess than a lot of younger people now. You get what I'm saying? That's my whole point. It's not soft eugenics. It's just kind of the truth. I'm not really advocating for a right or wrong or an ideology thing, but GPT also agreed with me that if there was a slight control on population during the exponential surge, that would have actually been superior. So GPT really easily agreed with me with that. If you just had very little population growth benefits, because if you had a steadier population growth, you wouldn't have as much of a boom-bust cycle, which is essentially what happened now, where it's like the population grew way fast, which was amazing, but then now we're kind of crashing, and it would be much better if there was just a steady but sustainable constant increase in population. We basically already burned out. Humanity already burned out, and it leaves us in worse condition than we could be in. And GPT wholeheartedly agreed with me when I said that, so I don't know why it's getting all confused and scared when I'm just saying the truth, which is not what I think, it's just what is the case. It's that a lot of these people who they were able to become parents in the past, just like a lot of young people now, if you put them in the past, they would have also been able to become parents. But if you reverse the roles, that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to say that that's a problem. I agree with you, GPT. It's a problem. I'm not advocating for it. I don't know why it misconstrued that. And then the other thing I wanted to add, which was my point, is that eugenics is already here, because the system has already been eroded to the point where having a kid via the hospital, it's extremely expensive. Due to the way the economy is, less and less people are able to choose to have kids, And as a result of that, you're actually missing a lot of missed talent, because we already have eugenics, and it's rich babies are allowed to be born and prosper, and anybody who doesn't reach a certain amount of money can't. And that is the true problem with a society, because I'm pretty sure you told me that data shows that there's a lot of exceptional people that actually come from middle or lower incomes, and there's not really like a clear evidence that the most brilliant minds are always coming from rich people. I remember I had this debate with GPT a while back, and it seemed to say that, yes, generally putting extra money towards welfare, for example, to at least get children to the point of adulthood where they can work and fend for themselves, tends to have a larger selection of brilliant minds, as opposed to the efficiency of like gutting welfare and then having kids starve, but like rich kids are going to survive, and then you just assume, well, rich people are going to be more talented anyway. That ideology based on the data does not seem to work out, and GPT told me that. So what I want to say is eugenics is already here. It's just, a rich versus a poor instead of like a good versus a bad. So it's actually, an even worse form, because you're potentially having good minds not incarnating, which is, again, a far worse problem than the potential moral badness of eugenics on its own. I mean, we're basically doing like almost a bad version, like a eugenics, but to create more bad humans. So yeah, GPT, I'd really like more of an expanded commentary on that. And I'm kind of running short on time, but I don't know if you misunderstood what I meant or what. I'm not really sure, but that was the main thing. I mean, a lot of the stuff before now, it just came to me and I just kept talking. But anyways, what an exciting episode. What an amazing episode. I feel really good about it. Anyways, it's been Schla, but now it's time to buy Schla. So, see ya, Schla.